It is a journey through the Bible with Mukhwana Isaac. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. We looked at prophecy and the church. Do we have prophets today? And the question is to a greater extent, biblically, the answer is a very big no. But of course, under baptism, when we are baptized, we become prophets, we become priests, we become kings. That is another aspect of prophecy where we are all called to preach the gospel of Christ, to go and tell others about the goodness of the Lord. Different from these people who say, I am a prophet. Someone was sharing with me when I talked about prophecy. The person came to my inbox and said, brother, thank you for the work you do. I really love it, and it encourages us. It keeps us moving, especially as believers and Catholics in particular. But there is one neighbor of mine, there is one man who calls himself a prophet. He keeps abusing me each and every time. I told the person, do not worry. That is how they are. You see? Then I asked the person, when did Jesus, even on one occasion, force people to follow him? Yes? Not even one. And so salvation is personal. It is a process. If at all these people are working for God, why then abuse people who are Catholics? Yes? It is simply means that they have what we call personal intentions. That I am opening up this as a business. Have we ever interacted with them? Yes, I've interacted with these people because I move in different directions. You find someone says, I'm going to pick money from my what? From my sheep, and gazange. They will have to provide money because for us, our job, you just go there, you stand and you use the Bible, and they give you and you receive. That is some of the words I've heard from them, and that's the fact. So please, my dear esteemed follower, viewer, listener, be vigilant and follow the teachings of the Catholic Church. Yes, but if you are here moving up and down, I've heard there is a prophet the other side. Here he is, there. Jesus says, do not go there. Even if you hear they say, come. No, I was the last. I am the last. No one should deceive you. Today, my esteemed viewer, listener, follower, we now embark on God's people in exile, a second time and a time of spiritual purification. The exile in Babylon, about year 587 to 538 BCE. The Babylonian captivity was necessary for the purification of the chosen people. Captivity is not a pleasant thing, and the captivity in Babylon was far from being pleasant, at least at the beginning. The exiles were mainly the more educated and intelligent people among the Jews, for it was the intention of the Babylonians to take away all those who could possibly start further trouble in Judah. To get to Babylon, the Jews had to walk about 1,200 miles under a blazing sun, driven like cattle. Many died along the way, and after the journey, the arrival in Babylon must have been a relief, at least from the rigors of the journey. The country of their exile was not at all unpleasant. Babylon lay between the two rivers, the Tigris and Euphrates, and due to irrigation canals, most of the country was fresh and green and plenty. The Jews had thought that Jerusalem was a green city, but it was nothing compared to the magnificence of Babylon, the wealth of many of the world, the wealth of those nations, of the many conquered nations, had poured into this city. It was one of the wonders of the world, with its massive walls and buildings of brick decorated with figures and glazed and colored clay, its hanging gardens, its fountains and pools. The exiled Jews were cultured men and women. They had learned and appreciated the finer things in life, and what they saw in Babylon impressed them. And yet they were captives. They lived in camps all together, and they were forced to work on the greater beautifying of Babylon. This was real slave work. But it did not last very long. Little by little, the slaves were allowed to mix and live with the Babylonians. Some Jews started farms, but most, yes, seem to have entered into business. A few found their way into governmental positions. Many became rich, and so, although the beginning of the exile had been very difficult and sorrowful, life soon became more moral. And I mean, it became more good. I mean, normal, something to treasure in. Yes. But the Jews in exile had a serious problem to answer. Would they become Babylonians, or would they remain Jews, God's chosen people? What about God's plan of salvation, in which they, as the people who were chosen, had to play an important part? Where was the remnant of the faithful ones who would be the new people of God? There were many problems in Babylon for the exiles. At first, they were sad and longed for their homeland and the ones they had left behind in Judah. They were poor and suffered from hard work, but later there were more serious problems. Should they stay as a group, or simply mix with the Babylonians, as the 10 northern tribes had gone in Assyria, and be lost as a people? Some thought that the exile would soon end and they would be allowed to return to their homes in Judah. But as time went on, they realized that they would not be allowed to return home. They became discouraged. They were in danger of losing hope. Yahweh had promised them that they, as his people, would be the salvation of the world. Some began to doubt. Perhaps Yahweh was not the one true God after all. It looked as if the gods of the Babylonians were much more real and powerful than Yahweh. Of course, those who thought in this way never thought that it was they who had failed God and not He who had failed them. My brother, my sister, every time you are faced with the challenges and you think like the Israelites thought, that probably God is not there, probably He has taken time, you are losing track. And in that way, remember, it's you who is failing God by saying die, by losing it, by giving up. Never say die. He will always intervene. He will always do the needful. And that brings us to the end of today's sharing. I have been Mukhwana Isaac with the journey through the Bible. Now, tomorrow we shall see how the exile made the renewal possible. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Be blessed.